Hello, America. This is Mr. Citizen Patriot. I finally have made it here to Washington, D.C. I've been around for 17 years, born in Los Angeles in 2003. My role is to bring patriotism to a higher level in our country. My role is to wear this uniform for the sake of the men and women who wore their uniforms to be shot at, that I may be free. I didn't go to be shot at, but the least that I can do for those men and women who gave their lives for me is to wear this uniform to remind the world who they are and what they've done. And I've come also to raise the spirit of patriotism in our country, to come together, whether you're on the political right or left, it doesn't matter right now. We as a nation must come together, and what better person to help bring the nation together than a person like Mr. Citizen Patriot. And for more information on Mr. Patriot and how to get in touch with me and participate in this new awakening of American patriotism, go to mrpatriot.us. Get involved with this new American patriotism that we're bringing to you today. Hello, everybody. This is Ted, a.k.a. Mr. Citizen Patriot. Yep, that cat that you just saw right there. Welcome to another exciting, intriguing, challenging, mind-triggering of thought episode of Your Power Weapon on urbansmartnetwork.com. We're here every Monday night from 7 o'clock p.m. Pacific Coast time and 10 o'clock p.m. East Coast time. 7 o'clock every Monday night for 1 hour. Today is Monday, May the 30th, 2022. Today is so-called Memorial Day. Memorial Day for the men and the women, primarily men, young men at that, who over the years of our existence, that's 46 years of our existence, have given their lives, put on that uniform, to be shot at, so to speak, that you and I, who can't, won't, put on that uniform to be shot at. We memorialize these folks, these wonderful, brave, and courageous American citizens whom most of us really don't pay that much attention to. And I'd like to also add, not just to those who already serve, but also those who are presently in active duty. Not just those who are presently in active duty, but those who are in basic training, who gets up every morning. And I believe one of my co-contributors here, or two of my co-contributors, are military veterans. That's Ken Unicorn White and Emery McClendon. They both went through basic training, getting their butts up at 3:30, 4 in the morning to get out there to get more done in the morning than we get done all day long. And no one thinks about these people, man. So it's a memorial about all people, deceased and living and active. Memorial Day. Now, I would like to break this up into a couple little segments if possible, because as you know, we're going to deal with this whole idea of the Republicanism and the cleverness of white supremacy and how it affects Republicans, or it doesn't. But before we go there, I'd like to spend a little bit of time, if we could, on Memorial Day. And I want to bring in right now and introduce really quickly, and we'll come back to them obviously more, but I want to introduce my team tonight, and we have a special guest. First, I would like to introduce excuse me, our co-host, Mr. Keith Hardeen. Keith, talk to us just for a minute. Tell us what's going on. Let people get a look at that. Look at that face, y'all. Look at that mug. Go ahead, Keith.
Hey, everybody. How's it going, brothers and sisters?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, good to see everybody. And all my friends here, Ken and Ted, and special guest who probably wants to remain anonymous at this point. But we'll see where Ted goes tonight. And I'll just kind of go with the flow.
Where the Spirit of God takes us tonight. By the way, folks, Keith and I have been having a running battle, man. We talk almost every other morning, and I'm calling Keith the new Black Lion. I keep telling him he needs to put on a black beret some black gloves, and give him that look. And he'll scare he will scare Huey P. Newton. There it is. And Eldridge Cleaver. Man, them brothers ain't got nothing on Keith Harding. They really don't. We'll talk about that one time. We just gonna talk. We all gonna be on Keith one of these days. They're gonna deal with Keith, okay? So, yay, Keith, thank you for being here. And let's go over to the man with the horn. Y'all know what horn is in the Bible? Horn means power, the power of a nation. Come on, Unicorn. Let's get a look at that mug.
What's up, everybody? Hey. Thank you for having me on today, Ted. And yes, you're right. Today is Memorial Day, a day to remember. That's the show that I made today on my show. It's titled Memorial Day, a day to remember. I do have a dog in that fight. My son, Kenneth Alexander White, was 3rd Battalion Marine Corps. We sent 2 boys into the Marine Corps and got 1 back. So blessed, hallowed remembrance to all who are affected by Memorial Day, directly or indirectly.
Excuse me, did you say you lost a boy in the Marines?
Yes, sir.
You lost a son? I didn't know that. I didn't know that, Ken.
Well, yeah, I don't talk about it a lot. It's not something, that you talk about every day. But today is Memorial Day, and this day is ironically for him. So
Thank you for sharing that, brother. Appreciate that. It's Candace here. We have a new commentator to join us tonight, young, beautiful lady by the name of Candace. Candace, are you here? Okay, I guess Candace is having some technical
Yeah,
difficulty right now.
I'm here.
Oh, there
Hello.
you are. Hey, Candace. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Welcome to the podcast. This is your ladies and gentlemen, be kind. This is her first night out with us. Candace, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, um, I'm excited to be on. I actually didn't expect to be on, so this is new for me. Um, but I just, as I mentioned earlier, I am someone who believes that, as a believer, that we need to be concerned about what's going on in the civic landscape of the society we're in. And not concerned in the sense that we need to, because the Bible says to cast your cares. So it's not that we're to be burdened by the things going on in society, but at least be aware enough so that we are not or inadvertently being misled to support things that are anti-God. So I just have an interest in that. I believe that God has put that on my heart, and I, hold community meetings with people, and we talk about, the issues of the day. And, the hope is that we'll be able to get on board with a project to actually make an impact in our communities.
Wonderful. Candace, I have one question for you. Here's your opening first question on your power weapon, urbansmartnetwork.com. When you say believer, as our country has all kind of believers, Muslims, Hindus, Jews, Buddhists, Confucianists, even Wiccans, Satanists, even so-called non-believers, believers. When you say believer, to whom are you addressing yourself?
So I am speaking specifically about the belief that Jesus Christ died and rose again, and that He was sent so for us to have you know a redemption from sin, if we believe that. So that's what I am, a believer. I'm a follower of Christ.
Very good. Thank you for clarifying that. I appreciate that. Not that, folks, not that we're saying that those of you who are not followers of Hamashiach, Yeshua, Jesus Christ, but if you're followers of other beliefs and religions and faiths, that's fine. You're welcome to Urban Smart Network on your power weapon, because this is America. This is America. It is not a theocratic society that is Judeo-Christian. It is under a Republican form of government. And here, according to the First Amendment, everyone here has a freedom of speech. The only thing that we disagree with about that freedom of speech is when you stick a sword to someone else's neck and tell them that they have to believe what you believe, otherwise they die. That we do not comply with. Right, folks? People have a right to believe, but not threaten other people about their faith. Let's you saw Mr. Patriot at the, thanks to Bob Hedren, Smoke, we call him the Smoke. He's the producer. He's actually first black person in my 37 years of activism around homelessness and our people's causes to actually do a project with me along with this production here. But also Bob met me in DC and he did a whole series on Mr. Patriot at all the memorials, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, um, um, all of them.
Hi, friends, citizens, fellow patriots. I'm at the Korean Memorial now. I was born 1951, just when the stuff was starting to go. My father was over there in Korea. He was at the Yalu River when it broke out with the Chinese. And I wanted to come by here and pay tribute to these men and women. Once again, like all the others, gave their lives that we may be free. That's why, again, I do this as Mr. Patriot, Citizen Patriot, because this is our job, our responsibility. They have our front, we have to have their back. So, thank you guys. Blessings.
He fought in World War II with the Black Buffalo Division. So he was a Buffalo soldier, and I'm his eldest son. Therefore, I am consider myself the son of a Buffalo soldier. My dad got wounded. He was shot, sniped by a German, apparently, or somebody up in the church tower, he tells us. Got a Purple Heart. Then 5 years later, man, though the cat didn't have enough to do, he turns around and goes to Korea and fights for the freedom of the Korean people. And he gets wounded there. A Korean communist dude threw a grenade on him and got shrapnel. To the day he passed, he was pulling shrapnel metal out of his body. My daddy suffered PTSD. We didn't call it that then. We called it he's freaking out, He even became semi-homeless at one time in a small town. Everybody in town knew that was my dad, but I was still proud of him as my dad. He helped to make this country. So, I have a real empathy here to support our veterans. And I put that uniform on, and I thought people would laugh at me and mock me, even black folks. But everybody that he walks across, people just love the idea of Mr. Patriot. That is my personal contribution to what these men and women have done for us and continue to do for us. Let's go to the veteran in the group here. And one final thing. I don't know if y'all know this or not, people, but you know how Memorial Day started? I challenge y'all to go do some research, okay? I did some research, knocked my big eyes open, man. Did you know that Memorial Day was started by the freed Chattel slave black people in South Carolina, where 40% of the slave trade came through? Go look that up. Go look that up. You don't hear about that from the leaders of our country. You don't even hear about it from our liberal black leaders. You don't hear about it from our conservative Republicans. We should really be out on this even more so than June freaking 10th. Okay? Oh, excuse me. I don't mean to be disparaging of Juneteenth. I'm just showing you the comparison of the two. But black folks. All right, let's go to my man Ken Unicorn. Yes, sir, Ken.
Hey. Thank you for your father's service. And it's kind of ironic how history continues in this cyclical thing. You go, you serve the country, you pick up some injuries or mental issues or what have you. So integrating back into society is a difficult thing for the American fighting personnel. And so they end up having bouts of homelessness, poverty, the whole 9 yards because they can't integrate. You're saying that happened to your father, and it's still happening today. This has got to end. And what was going on with your father back then, we used to call it shell shock. They're like, oh, yeah, he's just shell shock. Yeah. And now we understand that it's a lot deeper than that because, again, I have some experience with PTSD due to the nature that I shared with you earlier. It is not natural. It is not part of our matrix to kill on the level you have to when you're involved in military conflicts. Thank God that we are able to navigate it and get the job done. That's not to disparage those who can do it and seem to be okay. But the natural state of the human being is we're not designed to keep doing that every day, to keep seeing that carnage every day. It's going to have an effect. And I say to our nation, if you're going to send people into battle and basically ask them to sacrifice, not if their bodies are cold and dead on the ground, but you're asking them to sacrifice their lives. Because once you've been in a military, right, and their families, yeah. Once you've done that, you're there. On my show today, I said it. I said, perhaps when you join the military, it should be a commitment for life. Maybe that's, I call it the military matrix. Maybe that's where you should stay for the rest of your life. We should just consider people who are able to do the 20-year, 30-year, 40-year mission in our military and let them remain there, because oftentimes integrating back into civilian life is very difficult.
Ken, you talked about your show. Where can they see your show, brother? Talk about that for a minute. When are you on? Where can they catch you?
Well, you know me, being a unicorn, the sighting of a unicorn is very rare. You see them every now and then.
Especially a black ass unicorn.
you will find me anywhere that podcast shows are hosted, particularly iHeartRadio. All you have to do is type in the Southside Unicorn, and the show will pop up. I hope the viewers and whatnot will interchange between all of us, because that's what we're doing here. This is a dynamicist. Ted, I believe in what you're doing. I love your show. I love being a guest on your show. And our people, and I'm speaking predominantly to the African-American community, you need to start drinking different water. You keep getting your water from Al Sharpton and Maxine Waters, no pun intended. All these people.
Good one.
Oh, hey. Man, come on.
There it goes again.
You've been doing that for 40, 50 years, and you keep getting the same damn thing. Keith Hardeen, he knows the Constitution. He's a man of God. I admire Keith Hardeen. I met him we were both members of a board, if I'm not mistaken. We were both on a committee. And I got to hear him speak, and I was like, I want to get to know that man. We got some good people here on the right. Candace, I just got a slight glimpse of who she is, and I'm liking what I'm hearing. So today, I definitely want to hear more from Candace, because I've always wrestled with that here on Memorial Day, since we're talking about warriors and fighting and swords and all this. People keep telling me, oh, you just got to wait on the Lord. Don't worry about what the Democrats are doing. Everything's going to be okay. God's in control. And I keep saying, but Joshua fit the battle of Jericho. But he also had people who had to defend the gates. Is it wrong to lift the sword and yet still call yourself a Christian? And I'm hoping that Candace can shed some light on that question.
Well, Unicorn, we appreciate you being here tonight. Always. You bring a lot to the podcast, and I'm sure everybody out there just loving the life in you.
Well, I like this synergy, man. We got the proper connection here. This is good stuff.
There you go. My man from South. We got a guy from South Chicago, and we got a guy from South LA. My man, Keith Hardeen. I mean, Keith is the upsetter. They say Larry Elder is the sage. That's a bunch of bull, bromine, what do they call it? Male bromine fecal matter. Right there, folks, you are looking at the real sage of South Central right there. Keith Hardeen.
Well,
go on, Keith. That beautiful smile.
Well, I like Larry Elder, so I'm not going to say anything about that. But I tell you one thing, it's really interesting to note something that Ken said. I just want to kind of piggyback on that when he talked about, because the post-traumatic syndrome of warriors and fighters. I mean, it makes me think about, immediately my mind goes back to the scriptures, and you think about men like David, who slew thousands of people, slew Goliath, cut off his head with his own sword. People like Samson slew 1,000 men with the jawbone of an ass. People like, there's another guy named Samgar. Samgar, he had with an ox goad, he killed 600 men with an ox goad. Paul the Apostle Paul had Christians killed, before Jesus knocked him off his horse and he changed his life. But all these men, these are men that shed blood. So, and you think about that for a moment, and yet God used those men to do what they did. So there is a place. Only thing I can conclude is that there is a place for what we do.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that, my brother. Now, let me give y'all a little bit of balance to this thing. I can't speak for what each individual believer in Jesus does in the country that they hail from. I know I've said that if I lived in communist China, I would still be an activist, but I would not try to overthrow the communist regime or any government for that matter. I would try to make it be what it says it's supposed to be. I will not pick up a weapon. I don't own a gun. I will not own a gun. I don't go to firing ranges. I've been to one once. I didn't want to shoot. They offered me to shoot for free. I didn't want to do it. And that's not because, well, part of it because I'm a coward. Part of it because I'm
Don't say that. No,
part
you're
of it
not.
because I will probably use a gun when it's not necessary.
You are not a coward, Ted. There are people who couldn't even begin to do what you do out there in Los Angeles, bro. I mean, there's a point of humility, but come on, man.
But
I can't let you say that.
But that's why I salute the police.
Out of my mouth.
I salute the military, these people, because for some reason God has given them the aptitude to do that. But I ain't got it, And I support the Second Amendment 100%. I believe if you could put a tank in your backyard, put it up in there, man. You got to have something to deter a rogue U.S. military should ever come to pass. But on the spiritual level, more, the Lord did say, turn the other cheek. He did say, reward bad with good, and love and evil with love. He did say on the cross when he was beating the living daylights out of him and nailing him to the cross, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. He did not resist them. When Peter drew the sword, he said, put away your sword, Peter, because this is not the place to use that sword. Because when you promote the gospel of peace, you don't need a sword to promote the gospel of peace. That's just for you in your personal defense. But then again, if someone slaps you side of the face, turn the other cheek. And then following that, for centuries to this day, Christians are dying without raising a hand to their abuser. Not only that, but he said to Pilate, he said, now Pilate, let me tell you something. He said, Pilate, if my kingdom was of this world, then my servants would fight for it. And of course we would win, hands down. So why don't we, as believers in Jesus, fight for it? Or do we fight as Americans? I think we need to differentiate the two, you see. I support the state of Israel. I support what they're doing to fight for themselves. But if you're going to fight in the name of Yeshua Mashiach, we got a different situation, folks. That's all I'm saying. Just another thought. And I like what our new guest Candace said. I love what she said, because I said a long time ago myself, is that he said to us, occupy till I come. Get involved with the affairs of government and what's going on in the world. Relieve the oppressed and the poor and so forth and so on, and fight for justice. I'm all in there.
And Ted, I think that let me also say that the right of self-defense comes from God. That's the first law of nature.
But you don't find that you don't find that really prevalent in the Gospels. You just don't find that, Keith. You find circumstances, because I don't see anywhere where Paul raised a weapon to defend himself.
Well, let me give you the example I'm going to give you. The example is I'm saying that when Jesus said to Peter, he said to put up your sword in its place. That means that you use the sword only when it's time to use the sword. And that was not the time to use.
Okay, and I agree with you on that 100%.
It takes a certain level of discernment to know the threat and when.
Go ahead.
Let me give you this example also. When Jesus, there was a couple of times in the scriptures, I can't recall it right now. Jesus was about to throw him off a cliff, and Jesus walked through the crowd.
But
That's
he
what the
did
Bible
not
says.
raise
Now, I
his
don't know
hand and
exactly what
wipe
that,
them
I
out.
don't know if you say literally, what do you think?
No, I just listen. No, I think literally he walked through
What's
the
that?
cloud because the power of the Holy Spirit had come upon him so heavy. Either he disappeared and walked through them, or he walked through dimensions through them, or they parted and realized we can't mess with this cat. He did not say, Peter, John, y'all get y'all swords out and stop these crazy ass people. No, he did not, did he? He
Well, that's
relied
my
on
point.
the power
That's
of
my
God.
point.
It was
God
God's
doesn't.
will for him to live or die.
Yes.
Can I ask a question?
No.
Go. Go.
Come on, sister.
I'm
Go
I'm
ahead,
hearing what
Candace.
you're saying, Mr. Hayes. I wonder about the examples like when Jesus turned over the tables, when he was so righteously angry about these folks, buying and selling in the temple. That's expressing it's an expression. It might even be considered like a violent expression, but we don't really know the details of how that happened. What was that turning over like? Was it a mild turning over, or was it aggressive? And I think that's one illustration of, if it was aggressive, then that was a use of aggression or use of force, right? Um,
Yeah,
Well,
yeah, yeah.
Candace,
But then
Candace,
again, folks, that's
God,
Jesus.
yeah.
That's Jesus. Okay.
The scripture
Now,
says, the
hold
scripture
on, hold
says
on,
that he made
hold
a
on, hold on,
whip.
brother. Hold on, brother.
He
Hold on.
made a,
That's hold on. That's Jesus. He could do that. That was his father's house. He was under divine authority to do that. Can you get up on the cross? Can you do that? Jesus allowed himself to be put on the cross. Can you do that? Is that your job to die on the cross? To be like Jesus, like that? So everything that Jesus does doesn't mean that we are supposed to do. What a general may do in the battlefield may be one thing, but what a private does is a whole nother situation. So we have to be careful about putting ourselves in the place of Jesus Christ.
okay. Can I
well, he
then?
tells us, oh, go ahead.
So then the question then is, I like this discussion too, because it leads me to think about, let's juxtapose the Old Testament to the New Testament. Old Testament, we have several examples of warriors, of individuals that got put in place to actually defend. I mean, the march around, oh, why am I forgetting? I'm drawing
Jericho.
Jericho, right? And then they were to take over, right? Then there's the 300. There's all kinds of examples of warrior type of instances in the Old Testament. So the question then is, did these types of appointments by God cease to exist when the New Testament came?
There
Because
you go.
the New Testament, we are under grace, we're under new covenant, so therefore there's it's not necessary to operate in the same aggressive fashion. I mean, it's no longer an eye for an eye and things like that. So um
And also, Candace, if you recall, when the children of Israel left Egypt and went into the promised land, God told them to do what? Kill man, woman, child, and infants. Are we supposed to do that today in the name of the gospel of Jesus Christ? If my kingdom were of this world, yes, my servants would pick up the sword and we kick y'all Romans' butts. But that's not what my kingdom is about. There are circumstances whereby, some of my people may end up in the Roman army, or in the American army, or in the Vietnamese or the Communist army, where they are under that citizenship to obey the law of the land. That's a whole nother conversation, folks. My
Well,
opinion.
let me interject this real quick. Thank you for that, Candace. I knew I would enjoy hearing you speak. Here's where I'm at with this. Today is Memorial Day. This nation has been around for over about 247 years. And I want to ponder the question to everybody. Where would we be if it weren't for George Washington? Where would we be if it wasn't for Crispus Attucks? Where would we be if it weren't for the men and women who stood up and killed a whole lot of mofos just so we could end up with a nation where we can worship God? I look at myself and I say, Lord God, you said you knew me in the womb, that when you wove me, you made me who I am. I have carried a sword all my life. I've been a warrior on every level you can possibly think of, honestly. And so I have to question myself in these trying times of high conflict, where the left and the right, the woke and the Christians and the conservatives against the progressives, da 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 da. These things are not going to remedy themselves with a kind word, I don't believe. And so I ask myself, as a warrior, Lord God, am I to just stand still and let the World Health Organization and Biden and all these people lock me up in my house like they're doing in China unto death? Or am I to fight evil and repel it? What do I do?
You know, folks, to kind of segue out of this and kind of bring it to a conclusion where we all on the same page, there's some beliefs that I have that, you know, you may find rather heretical in the future that'll be coming out. But I believe where we are is in a very special dispensation of time. If you guys know anything about the dispensation of theology and all that, and Judaic and Christianity. So we are in a very special dispensation of time. We're in the consummation of the ages. So I can't lay down a hard rule fast one way or the other. I think every individual must be led by the Spirit of God. That's why Jesus sent the Holy Spirit, because he will convict of righteousness and of sin, and it will speak of Jesus and not of himself. All right, we're going to segue. Hey, folks, this is Ted, a.k.a. Mr. Patriot, host of Your Power Weapon on urbansmartnetwork.com every Monday night at 7 o'clock p.m. Pacific Coast time and 10 o'clock p.m. East Coast time. Tell all your people on social media and your friends, tune in. urbansmartnetwork.com. Okay, folks. Now, I hope y'all got your swords ready for this one, ladies and gentlemen. Sitting watching us and all of you here on the panel. Today's real topic was your power weapon was the lost Republican Party and the cleverness of white supremacy. Now, this may have to go into a two-part discussion, pick up again next week. I don't know. But let me just give y'all a little bit of, if you had a chance to read what I put out on Urban Smart Network on the promo, if not, let me just read a little bit to you right now. This is particularly true in two cases where the Republican Party is lost and white supremacy is clever. Republican Party is so diluted, crippled, and disempowered by the mysterious encroachment of conservatism into its philosophical fabric of republicanism that since the 1877 Democratic Republican Party's compromise over the generational fates of us new U.S. Black citizens, as high as 95% of the Americans who identify themselves as Republicans are not, but rather unknowingly hold the erroneous perception whereby the two terms are synonymous, and they are not. Such blasphemous rhetoric of our republic betrays the 740,000 young, innocent white boys and men and black men who gave their lives in the Civil War. It is mysteriously strange that today's traditional conservative values are in line with and mirrors those of the Confederate South. Did you hear me? I said today's values, conservative values, are in line with those of the Confederate South, which actually waged tactile war against the federal government, which morally allowed an electoral political entity such as the Democratic Party to legislate and enforce by governmental enforcement systems, along with the secret terrorist tactics of 245 years of the KKK and 100 years of KKK. And if the Republican Party, I'm sorry. Anyway, the point I'm making, that's enough of that. The point I'm making is simply, folks, the Republican Party's lost its way. And in losing its way, while conservatives keep pointing at the Democrats as being the racist and ruled by white supremacy, well, the Republicans are also suffering from a form of very clever white supremacy. It's not a supremacy where they think that genetically they are superior to us or anybody else. It's a white supremacy that says that people of their ilk should be responsible and hold the duty of saving the Union and keeping the Republic. And those of us who look like us, or rather the descendants of the chattel slaves, we are not allowed. We are not allowed on the front lines. Ken and I had this conversation the other day. Keith and I had this conversation the other day. Keith Hardeen should be lauded in the Republican Party for who and what he espouses. But instead, they've relegated him to a side kind of thing. Keith should be a primary speaker throughout the whole Republican Party, but not there. Why not? Because of the heritage that he is from. Keith used to say he's never experienced Jim Crowism under the Jim Crow era. I'm telling you, Keith, you're experiencing it right now. So that's my position on that, y'all. And I think that until the Republican Party and these conservatives admit to their role in the generation destroying of chattel slavery of this nation, God, who is the central figure of the Declaration of Independence, is going to see to it that this nation shall fail as an experiment, because they have implicated his person and his name in chattel slavery that we have never fully resolved in this country, which is why we have a predominance of homeless people who are black and a predominance of young black men. 7,500 young black men every year are killed by gunfire by the hands of young black men, and nobody wants to really talk about what is causing that. They always talk about we got to get rid of guns. As though guns get up and shoot people. There is a reason why people get up and shoot each other, especially in those phenomenal, astronomical numbers of a whole people. Comments, team?
That I'd like to hear what Ken would have to say about that one too.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah,
Well,
that's
Hey, smoke! It's getting smoky up in here. Where's the fire?
here we go. Let me have a little bite of that sandwich. Let me get a piece of that
Got hot
nasty
sauce on that,
cheese.
King.
Here we go.
I put some hot sauce on that.
It's okay. Watch this. I used to have, and I still have fun, bringing truth to young leftists and progressives, and watch the effect of what's called cognitive dissonance. Once you attack somebody's belief system and there's a bit of truth in it, it can freak them out if they're not mature and able to handle it. So, Mr. Hayes, Mr. Citizen Patriot, you're not going to see me freak out. I'm not going to go, but I do feel a little bit of cognitive dissonance happening in a brother right here, because you're right. Keith should be speaking all across. Yeah, okay, you got me a little bit, just a little bit. But what I want to point out is, here we are in 2022, and we're poised in June on June 7th, and in November, I see an awful lot of minority candidates in the Republican Party running for everything, primarily Congress. I believe that what you're pointing out, Ted, has some truth, but I also see the potential for it to change. I see the Republican Party acknowledging they got to bring some brothers up in here.
Can I just make a statement or ask a question?
Hey.
I really am here to learn. Like, I just value this so much, because you guys are so knowledgeable, and I'm kind of a newbie here. But I recently, I don't know if you guys pay attention to TD hip hop. Anybody familiar with TD hip hop?
Nope, but you're going to make us familiar.
TD hip hop is sort of a subsidiary. He's a YouTuber, blogger. He does commentary, but he's affiliated with TD News. Are you guys familiar with TD News? Okay, TD News is a subsidiary, I believe, or a partnership news outlet with Epoch Times. You guys know Epoch Times?
We know Epoch Times.
Okay. So
Get to the point. Come on now.
Okay, come on, girl.
Okay, sorry guys. So TD Hip Hop puts out videos, and he put out a video in particular related to Maxine Waters. Maxine Waters advancing the economic development. I believe it was of Barbados or the Bahamas. I can't remember which one. And he made the claim or statement that one of the challenges in America is that there's also no effort toward the economic advancement of Black people in America. And so I'd never really given a thought to that, but then I went to go look up, what policies have been advanced to push the economic are there any policies that have been written to advance, economic prosperity for Black Americans? And I haven't found anything yet. Maybe there's something out there. I haven't done an in-depth study of this yet. But I say all this to say that, similar to what Mr. Hayes is saying, there's this undercurrent and of what he likes to call benign neglect, benign neglect of the Afro descendant struggle in this country. And there's no real overt acknowledgement of what the struggle is on either side, really. The
Can I just
go
make
ahead.
a quick interjection? I hear what you're saying. I feel your thrust. I remember Ted Hayes had a woman on his show. She has a doctor's degree and she's from Haiti. And she was, she was kind of saying something similar to what you're saying right now. But let me just posit this right here, right now. If African Americans, as Malcolm X said, would stop being political chumps, if they would start being more politically mature, the very elixir, the very question that you're posing, Candace, would have already been remedied. President Donald J. Trump had a program called the Platinum Program. It was tangible, it was real, and it was going to empower, economically strengthen the Black communities. But Black people, through Maxine Waters and the Democrats, drank that Kool-Aid heavily with some crackers to boot. And they did what they did to President Donald J. Trump. And so we are here in this economic benign position where the brothers still ain't getting nothing 60 years later. That's your answer, Candace.
I want to comment on that, but I want to go back. I'm gonna come at you, man. I want to go back at the sister for a minute. Sister, continue what you were saying, because I'm gonna come deal with this cat. Go ahead, sister. Finish what you were saying.
Oh man,
I'm with you, sister. I'm following you now. Go ahead.
So, I mean, I was just getting ready to say, I just think we need to examine, and I like what you're saying, Ken, because the reality is this is why I really try to focus on, okay, we are believers first. Mm-hmm. So let's many of us too, Afro-descendant people are believers. We're Christians, right? But somehow we've been beguiled by a party that promotes a lot of anti-Christian values. And so it's like, okay, how did that happen? And then, like what you're saying, Ken, we need to start asking the questions. We need to ask the why questions. We need to start asking what is between the letter A and Z and stop falling for just A, right? And Z. What is between that to make the determination on, who we should be voting for and things of that nature. And I don't think that we do enough of that. But, to Mr. Hayes's point, those individuals who are very astute, knowledgeable, they probably are aware of these issues. They haven't come out openly to say that, hey, there's a problem in this country where we need to actually address this and do something about it. And whenever what this guy on TD Hip Hop showcase was, whenever they're presented with the question, namely Obama, namely Kamala Harris, which are the examples that he used, they go into this really nebulous discussion about how, well, we just don't do that. And that's not the position of Blacks in America. We're actually here to bring everybody together, and we're here to represent all of the minority groups, every group that's struggling. That's our cause. It's not specific to, the Afro-descendant.
Right.
So
I'm sorry. Go ahead, sister.
I was just getting ready to say that, I think that we need to start having the conversations, like real conversations about why this isn't there's no public outcry. There's no real leader that's saying this. I mean, look at all the leaders we've had. We've had Al Sharpton, we've had all these people, and no one has come out and just specifically targeted. And maybe I'm new, so maybe I missed something. Maybe I haven't seen it. Maybe it's not. It's there, and I haven't seen it.
Let me say this. Let me say this. Conservative Black people, Republican Black people. I've been around these cats for quite a while now, and I've watched them.
Keith, you listening to this man, right?
Keith?
Okay.
Yeah,
Oh no, I got my shield up now. Come on, Ted. Let me hear what you got to say. You talk about Black, so you talk about me, man. Come on.
when you deal with Candace, I've been saying this, sister, that look at a football team. The one team was winning. They may be cheating. They may be doing all kind of dirty tricks. They winning. And at halftime, our team, the losing team, is in the locker room, head down, depressed. And coach said, "What's the matter?" And, "Oh, coach, man, they got more better team cheerleaders. The cheerleaders are prettier. They have larger, more fans. They have better equipment. They cheat. They cheat." Coach said, "I don't care about them, and neither should you care about them. They're your opponents. The way you're going to beat them is not complaining about how they're beating your ass. You need to start running your game. Know who you are. Run your plays. Make them play your game, and you win." And so they go out there and they win the game. Coach always used to tell us, back to the basics. And I'm telling you something. As I said about Republicans, 98% of them, especially black Republicans, have no idea what it means to be a Republican. Because if they knew what it meant to be a Republican, believe me, this nation would not be in the situation that we are in today, especially around the issues of race in this country. Number two, there was a lot of black conservatives and Republicans around our guy, Donald Trump. I followed Donald Trump not because I liked him. I'm not a fan, never have been, probably never will be a fan. But he he spoke the words that got my attention. When he talked about the 14th Amendment, he talked about the border, how it affects black folks more than anybody else. He talked about how the Democrats were the real bigots. He talked about how he wanted to be the second Abraham Lincoln. That got me going. And especially around the 14th Amendment, which most people know nothing about, which is the birthright citizenship of us chattel slave descendants. If they don't know those things, how can they defend him? And so one of my mentors who works with Donald Trump, I mean, before he worked with Donald Trump, he had told and explained to me, and I believe it, he confirmed that the Civil Rights Act of 1866, the 14th Amendment, was specifically to and for black people. But he also said that he agrees. He said, "I agree with you. The reason Donald Trump got taken down was because the black conservative Republicans that was around him did not effectively defend the stance that he was making." Why? Because every one of them, you could ask them, what is the Civil Rights Act of 1866? What is the 14th Amendment? What is the 15th Amendment? What is the 13th Amendment? What are anti-Ku Klux Klan laws? What does the Emancipation Proclamation really mean? They don't have a clue. But I'll tell you who does know. Nancy Pelosi knows. Schumer knows. All the socialist and communist leaders know. Mitch McConnell knows. All the Republican leaders knows. Rona, whatever that chick's name that runs the Republican Party, they know, but they're not going to tell the truth because they know if they told the truth about the historical facts that it was the Democrats who enslaved us and did these things to us, they're afraid that black folks are going to realize, oh my gosh, the Republican Party was made for us. We're going to be Republicans. And here we come with all our generational bull defecation heaped upon us from 245 years of chattel slavery.
But Ted,
that's why they don't want to see it.
That's why we're here. I mean, Keith Hardeen, myself, perhaps Candace too, because we know that. I knew at age 10 that there was no way in the hell I could be a Democrat. There's just no way I could do it. I am a Republican, a black Christian conservative, because of everything that you have espoused. And as your mentor mentored you, and as I consider you to be my mentor, I'm learning more and more. And with Keith Hardeen helping me with his constitutional knowledge, we're here, Ted. And yes, you're right. Some of us are still through stuff. And yes, this almost quasi-plantation mindset that exists in the GOP has the black Republican, the black conservative, a bit stifled, but we are going to have to call him to order. Candace has a plan for that, I believe. You know, I hear you. I'm a delegate with the CAGOP. I've been politically active for over 47 years. I intend to do more with an Afrocentric twist now.
And that's why I told y'all I'm going to start on this campaign. I'm not going after the Democrats so much. They're doing their job. Well, I'm going after the people who dare to call themselves Republicans, meaning that they are guardians of the Republic, which Benjamin Franklin, the #1 slave abolitionist, told them on behalf of the Founding Fathers, we've given you a republic if you can keep it. And that keeping is based on what they do about the greatest imperfection of this nation, which is chattel slavery. They never finished it, which is why 740,000 innocent young white boys had to die in that war over us, which is why our country is in this condition that's in right now, because conservative Republicans, particularly black Republicans, don't know their business. They're
Can I
just
ask a question real quick,
being
please?
accepted as
Can I ask a
conservative.
question real quick? I'd like to ask a question real quick. So, Ted, based on what you're saying, are you saying that what Barack Hussein Obama did relevant to the Uvalde, Texas massacre has its place in the fact of bringing up George Floyd and his unfortunate murder? Are you saying that because of those very things like that, that's why America's not going to be healed yet, and that perhaps Barack Hussein Obama is onto something by constantly mentioning the injustice of blacks?
No. What I'm saying is that the reason all this is going on is because the people who say they know the truth, the Republicans and the conservatives, have not admitted to their role in what has happened, even with George Floyd and Black Lives Matter. See, as I said in the beginning of the conversation, if you look at today's conservative rhetoric and doctrine, it is exactly the same as the Southern Confederacy, who held our people for 245 years of chattel slavery. And so, Candace, you have to ask the question, what is it about conservatism, period, whether in the past or today, that allowed for a political entity to legislate laws against fellow human beings? And these were Christians. These were Christians in the South, okay? They believed on Jesus and the Bible and the gospel. And yet a lot of the our ancestors, somehow the Holy Spirit convicted us and we became believers too. But that didn't make no difference to these Christians. Same today. If you ask Sean Hannity about homelessness, you ask Sean Hannity about the condition of black folks in America, he doesn't have a clue. You ask Candace, your other Candace lady, about the Civil Rights Act of 1866. She wouldn't have a clue. You listen to that congressman down there in Florida, that black fella. He's great, man. I love his articulation, but he doesn't know anything about this stuff. He's just a puppet. And all these new Republicans who are running for office, my good friend James Spencer, which I think he's going to break the mold, they all become just mouthpieces for conservatism and not republicanism. And that is what God is upset about with this country. They're perpetrating a fraud.
Wow, that's a lot, Ted. You said a lot in that little bit right there. So what's the solution? What do you suggest we do?
Yeah.
What we are doing right here, right now, tonight. What we are doing on your power weapon on urbansmartnetwork.com. That's where it's happening. This is a growing movement, folks. A growing movement, and we're taking over the national narrative on homelessness, particularly black-related homelessness. We're taking over the national narrative. As Candace said, we are the leaders of this nation. The nation is it is built on our back. Therefore, we are the natural leaders of the nation. We have the high moral ground cause. This is what the Democrats are afraid of, and they're happy that the Republicans refuse to own up to responsibility for fear. See, Republicans fear black people. They don't fear it because we think we're bad and evil. They fear it because they do not know how to rectify the hassle that we black people have with each other, having nothing to do with Democrats, white people, United States, Europeans, or anybody else. We Africans, we Americans from Africa, we have an issue with ourselves. We don't like each other. We hate each other. We distrust each other. You don't believe me? Look at how we murder one another. And what does the Bible say? Murder is what? Hatred.
Go ahead, Candace. Candace had something.
You know, I hear what you're saying, and I think that one of the challenges here is that there are parties. Some people say, "Oh, well, if you're not going to be a part of the Democratic Party, then you have to be part of the Republican Party. And if you're not a part of the Republican Party, then you have to be a part of the Democratic Party, because all the other parties in between are of little to no significance, and they're not going to push the needle, in terms of, advancing policy." And yeah, I think that's another discussion we also have to have. Like, well, what is the reason we are we are pushed to these parties. Why does it have to be about a party? And then, as it relates to the Republican Party, there, of course, we can find any number of people throughout the Republican Party who we know, although they knew the truth, they didn't say the truth. And then there were some that, what people like to call rhinos, they're
I hate
imposters.
rhinos.
They don't necessarily, really, if you follow the fruit, they don't necessarily espouse Republican values or conservative values. I think also too, we have to talk about this conflation between conservatism and republicanism. Some people argue that you can be conservative and still be a Democrat. Is that a possibility? So I think there's a lot of, the point I'm making is there's a lot of the stuff that's in between, like I said earlier, A and Z, that we need to really explore. We need to have an understanding as to why people in the Republican Party who started out as the, majority of Black people were involved with the Republican Party. Why did we shift to the Democrat Party?
And
Why?
we're going to get into that. We're running out of time. We're 3 minutes short now.
Sorry.
We're going to get into that, and I want you to come back and let's discuss that. Before we leave and get these last words in, I wanted to also mention that today is the 100th anniversary of the Lincoln Memorial construction. Wanted to note that, and Abraham Lincoln is our guy. He is our guy. He's our guy. That's why I accepted Donald Trump. I think Donald Trump was the second Abraham Lincoln. Nonetheless, I want to thank all of you for being here. Unicorn, I'd like to maybe next week, the following week, I need to have you host a show, but I want to be the guest because I want you to query me on what's going on with homelessness. Today, I met with the mayor of Beverly Hills, the mayor of Malibu. Big doings. 2 hours with this cat. He came here and we talked. Lots of stuff going on around homelessness. We're headed towards the White House in a couple of weeks, and I want you to ask questions on that. We wanted to discuss that matter. Okay.
It would be my honor.
Okay, you Unicorn, have a word. Ken, have a quick word. We got 2 minutes, and then we're out of here. Candace, we have a quick word. Okay.
Well, my word goes back to Candace. I wish we could have had the privilege of seeing the person, Candace, but the words are what's more important. Words, are the thing that matter. I like what I'm hearing from you, Candace, and I would like to hear more from you too.
Keith?
Well, I just want to say, when you get a chance, everybody, write this down. Those of you who are listening, look up the Cornerstone speech. And that's by, the Cornerstone speech was the Confederacy. The Vice President Stevens, his name was Alexander Stevens, and the new Confederacy. And the new Confederate nation. And that's what the Democrat Party represented then and represents today. The principles are the same. And you'll see the distinguishing difference between republicanism and democracy. And so I think that's where it all starts, is understanding the ideas of Jefferson and the founders compared to the ideas of the Confederacy.
And speaking of political parties, I like what Candace was saying. George Washington, the first president of the United States, said, "Ladies and gentlemen, we the people don't create political parties." And what do? We created political parties. So Black folks, hey, Choctaw slave descendants, it's up to us now. God has called us to this nation for a time such as this. We came through the fire. We came through the water. We came through trials and tribulations. We've learned to read. And now he has put us in a position to where it's going to be, this nation's survival is going to depend on us. So thank you. This has been Ted and all my guests on Your Power Weapon on UrbanSmartNetwork.com. See y'all next week.